Hello there, my dear friends. My name is Adam Clery, and welcome back to everybody's favourite NXT-based point show, NXT Ups and Downs. Gonna quickly get this out of the way early because it's got a bit of green on it. It'll be upsetting the green screen and thus upsetting my good pal Chris. Carly Rae Jepsen was amazing. Thank you for asking. But back to the real world now, and we must discuss the wrestling, and so we shall on this, my show, because NXT was a go-home show, and we've not had too many of those so far. But the pressure was really on this time, wasn't it? Because normally you go into a takeover and it benefits from comparisons to underwhelming main roster pay-per-views that happen the day after. But this time, TakeOver Portland has no such safety net. But before we can get there, there are just a few more matches that need to be hyped and a few performers that just need a little push. So let's see if we can cross those divides in the 2 hours NXT offers us. Because, as I've already said, my name is Adam Clery, and these are all the ups and downs for this week's episode of NXT. Yes, and before I start, I just want to quickly address the elephant in the room. If you cast your minds back to last week, I said this. I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you, right? If there isn't a mass brawl on next week's episode of NXT, I will present the entire episode of Ups and Downs in the style of a pirate. A jolly pirate. And was there a mass brawl this week? Will I have to do the entire episode in the style of a jolly pirate? No, I will not, me hearties. Okay, on with the show, and I've said this a million times, the intro is always really good, so I don't give the intro an up anymore, otherwise it'll just always be this random up for no reason whatsoever, but the intro was good because of Slipknot and because of recaps and of things like that. And we start the show pretty much exactly where we ended last week, with Roddy Strong without the Undisputed Era in tow. So mad is he, he's going there on his own. He gets down the ring, he picks up the microphone, and he calls out Velveteen Dream for doing all that stuff with his family. Now, want to just draw your attention to something very quickly. As I'm sure you know, my good pal slash colleague slash man I once made dress as a clown, Simon Miller, has this expression.
Stuff just happens.
Now, what I assume that means is that WWE rarely worries about continuity. Sometimes they want to just throw something on an episode of television because they just want to throw it on an episode of television. They don't worry about it making logical or narrative sense. And I just want to say, Bronson Reid coming out and be like, hang on, sorry, you can't go after Velveteen Dream. You need me in the face last week. I want to match with you, is the exact opposite of that. It's the exact opposite of a bad main roster trope. And I want to give that an up. And if you're going to make me witness all these little events across a 2 hour show, then make sure that they always consistently matter. Like Undisputed Era went on a tear last week, going around backstage, hitting people in the face and in the head and putting them in bins. And even though it wasn't about that, it was about the thing with Ciampa, it's all carried through to this week. We've got the Bronson Reid match and the Kushida main event, all from that. It's so simple, but it rewards you if you watch every week. And the match we got was an absolute stone cold banger classic, a brilliant little man versus big man match in which Strong just could not get the advantage over Bronson Reid because of his size, because of his power, because of his actual goodness in a wrestling ring. But it ended with... this was refreshing as well, actually. Normally you get a distraction finish in a wrestling match and say, oh no, someone's coming down the ramp. Guess I better turn my back on my... Oh no, I've been rolled up. I thought that's what we were getting here, and they didn't do that. Yes, they did distract Roderick Strong, and yes, Cameron Grimes did try to take advantage, but he was still able to get the win by catching him in the face with the knee, just like he did on last week's episode. It's wrestling writing 101. I liked it. Now, I'm not giving the match an up or down because it kind of feeds into a bigger point I want to make later in this episode. Stay tuned for that. But afterwards, Velveteen Dream went on the mic, and I cannot say enough good things about this promo. Thing is, right, for a start, I don't actually think Velveteen Dream is a particularly good promo. Like I've said on previous episodes of this, he should be doing all his talking with his feet and with his fists and more specifically with his hips. But this was compelling. It was sinister in a way I've not seen him before. But here's the real crux of this, right? Here is your baby face hero talking to your devious heel. And one of them is targeting the other man's wife and child in an attempt to get under his skin. It's a trope we've seen in wrestling many times before. Indeed, the whole trunk thing is an homage, rather generous homage I might add, to Rick Rude, but it's not the way round you'd expect. They're actually making Roddy Strong quite sympathetic in all of this, because of course he'd want to defend his family, and of course he shouldn't be going after them, but yet it's working for Dream. There are shades of grey in this story. Like, yeah, of course he wants his revenge. Undisputed Era put him on the shelf, but is this the right way to go about it? And of course, Roddy Strong's the bad guy. He injured Velveteen Dream, but surely we can all understand one man's desire to protect his wife and protect his child. They're letting you form your own opinion of this feud rather than spoon-feeding you regurgitated main roster nonsense. I loved it. It's an up. Now, one of the best things about this week was the continued segment of Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne, and their friend, the Dusty Classic Trophy, trying to get from Florida to Portland for TakeOver. We got, I think, 3 of these over the course of the show, and they got better every single time, but I'm going to talk about them as one delicious group. And just to slightly paraphrase myself from last week, I have worked very hard in my career. I have lectured, I have written all over the world, I've done this, I've done that, I did that conference in Russia last year and somehow wasn't murdered by anybody. I have worked really hard, and if I want to award a conceptual plus point to a wrestling show purely on the basis that they have a series of hilarious skits involving Triple H and private jets and giant swans, I can do that without really having to explain it. So the Broserweight road trip, Matt and Pete's excellent adventure, that gets an up as well. It's a thing. No, but I mean seriously though, like just giving these two a camera, letting them write their own material, having them dick about on a plane with Triple H instead of, like, what else could they have been doing this week? Beating the Forgotten Sons. Like, this is so much better than that. It's a masterstroke, and you hope, you pray they learn from how good this has been. If you let the wrestlers talk instead of giving them bad scripted promos, look what happens. Oh. Next up, a wrestling match for you all as Dakota Kai takes on Candice LeRae in one final push towards that blood feud at TakeOver. And I just want to give you a little statistic. Since September, how many wins do you think Dakota Kai has on NXT? Any guesses? Anyone? She's been on television fairly prominently. She's been a bit of a big feature. She's been in this story. She's been in that story. She was at War Games. How many wins? How many wins does she have under her belt? 1. She beat Mia Yim in December. That's it. But before you all get in the comment section, you're like, oh, but Adam, technically she was on the winning team at War Games, wasn't she? Lol, LMAO, cry, laugh emojis. Is that who you are? Is that who you are? That really who you want to be? Not the level of pedantry and cynicism you want to bring to my joyous comment section? Get out. And there is just this little bit of a cloud hanging over this feud because obviously Tegan Nox is a tremendous wrestler, but we've not really seen too much of that in an NXT ring, and Kai has always been more of a character performer rather than a technician. So for this to get such a prominent feature at TakeOver, yes, the narrative absolutely deserves it. Of course it does, but you just don't want these two to under-deliver on the match. And well, it's reduced expectations at the minute, I will say that much, but I am worried. Now, Sunday is another story for another time and indeed another video, but in the here and now, giving Kai this win over LeRae, and especially one in a match that was very back and forth, that looked very even, they looked on each other's level, was a smart move. It just gives us that little bit extra momentum heading into the Nox match, and thus it gets an up. And of course, thank you ladies both so much for instigating that mass brawl. I counted like 10 people and saving me from my pirate-based humiliation. Did I buy an eye patch? Yes, I did. Did I buy a little hook? Yes, I did. Did I buy a parrot to sit on my shoulder? Yes, I did, but that's for another time, I guess. Yar. Johnny Gargano versus Cameron Grimes for some reason next, and I genuinely think in months to come we will look back at this match as the starting point of a new era in NXT. I will explain why. Now, I've said it before, right, but there is a backlog in NXT at the minute. Stars who would normally be moving their way through the roster as people got called up to Raw and SmackDown now aren't getting those opportunities. They're not getting as much TV time, and we've kind of got a set number of performers who they like to showcase on television. Now, going into WrestleMania, it's understandable, but coming out of that, in April, we're going to need to freshen things up, and I think this episode as a whole showed why that shouldn't be too much of a worry. Bronson Reid's hardly been on television, Cameron Grimes has hardly been on television, Kushida has hardly been on television, but all these boys who are normally in the back really stepped it up this week and showed that the next generation of NXT stars, whenever they may have to come around, will deliver when they do. Now, I know I said I would touch on the Bronson Reid thing later on. That is now, by the way, but look at the depth they have on this show, and they're not being stagnated by not getting the TV time. They stepped up so seamlessly this week. Reid looked great against Strong. Grimes looked amazing against Gargano here, and as you'll see later, Kushida versus Cole was an absolute barnstormer. I'm giving the depth of the roster, as showcased on this week's episode, its own up. And speaking of its own up, Cameron Grimes this week, man. Bloody hell. Like, I'll hold my hands up here. I have used that whole going 50-50 with Kushida over a goddamn hat as a rod to beat NXT's back with over the past couple of weeks. And I didn't know when Did not know when we would ever get to see him again, but Jesus God, you can see why they like him. The pace of this match was what really got me, because Gargano's been like a million miles an hour the last couple of times I've seen him, and Grimes' whole thing is bang, straight out the traps, hit his finisher, pin you, or just lose. And this was so well paced and so methodical and so technically impressive and so well counted and so hard hitting. It's not the yellow jacket this week. That comes later, but God, this was close. Yeah, in the end, Gargano gets Grimes in the Gargano escape and he taps him in relatively short order, but just, my God, Grimes this week, man, he gets his own up. There's a promo for the Robert Stone brand up next, and they're having a relaunch next week after being on television twice. Okay? How many times have I said it? How many times have I said this? The Cruiserweight Championship has been one of the best things on NXT since it's moved to the USA Network and then the championship moved to that brand. Every single time, going all the way back to Lio Rush versus Oney Lorcan, they have delivered a banger. And you know what? This one might actually be the best of the lot. Angel Garza, yes, him from Monday Night Raw, takes on Lio Rush, yes, him from Bobby Lashley's shoulder, and on a night, right, where you had Adam Cole versus Kushida, where you had AEW arguably having one of their best ever televised matches in Nyla Rose versus Rio, was this the match of the night? Was this the match of the week? I think it was. Yes, I know we've been here before, but every single thing from their previous matches was used to not only inform, but elevate the match they were having here. Lio tried to hit all his power moves while Garza countered after he wound him up, but then they found ways to counter this. There was counter after counter after counter after counter. Like, some of the inventive spots in this match were just, stuff that dreams are made of. Now, if you cast your minds back to one of their previous encounters, you'll remember Lio Rush hitting the final hour to the outside, but not being able to get him back in the ring for the pin. And how did they end this one? Lio Rush hits the final hour on the outside, gets him back in the ring and decides to try and hit it again. And from there, Garza counters. This is brilliant. This is very clever. He picks him up for the wing clipper and gets rolled up, and Lio Rush wins. Absolutely nobody saw this coming, because Garza has been looking like a star on Monday Night Raw lately. He won a match on the main roster not 48 hours ago when he got into the ring with Lio Rush here, and he has somehow passed the rub he got from that onto Rush in the space of like one 15-minute classic. This is categorically, by the way, how you absolutely maximize the shared roster booking of Angel Garza. He isn't hurt by this. The match was absolutely fantastic. He can go back to Raw and continue to do whatever the hell he wants, knowing that every time he comes back to NXT, whoever he's working with is going to benefit from that. Isaiah Swerve Scott did last week. Rush has massively this week. I can't commend them enough for this. It's an up. Then after the match, Devlin comes out. He cuts a little promo on Rush, and you are so excited, aren't you, for Rush versus Devlin at TakeOver this weekend. It's what? Oh, it's on TV next week. It's on TV. Boo! Nah, do you know what? I'm only joking. Like, yeah, fair enough. They could squash this onto TakeOver and give them 5 or 10 minutes and it would be a Rush job, no pun intended. Or they can put them on television as probably the main event next week and it will be a 15 to 20 minute banger. I understand the process. I think the Cruiserweights deserve a big showcase TakeOver match, hopefully at WrestleMania. But, alright, if you've already got a built card, you already got a stacked card, you already got a very, very busy card, I understand. Fair play to NXT here next, by the way, because we all kind of a bit underwhelmed by Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic again. So to keep us from the burnout, they kept them both off television and just had Mark Henry tell you why this match is going to be brilliant. This was a big moment of NXT going, look, right, we know, okay, but trust in the process. The match will be brilliant, and I'm not giving it an up or a down, but I appreciated that. Well done. Right, so next up, Bianca Belair versus Santana Garrett. Now, this is a big match for 2 reasons. 1, Belair really needs a big boost on her way going into TakeOver, given the whole Charlotte Ripley thing. And 2, Santana Garrett, she really needs something. She needs a match where she can showcase precisely how good she is, why she should be another name in consideration for the NXT Women's Championship, why that Oh, she's lost. Oh, there we go. Yes, this match was over in a shorter amount of time than Santana Garrett's own entrance. Belair just spears her, wails on her a bit, hits a finisher, and that is that. Then she gets on the mic and she says it's not about Ripley going to the main roster, it's not about Charlotte coming back to NXT, it's about Bianca Belair. She's going to go to Portland, she's going to win the championship, and then Ripley comes down, Bianca lays her out as well, and that's the end of the segment. All told, this probably ran about 5 minutes, and it's this week's only down. And you know what? It probably did what it needed to do in the long run. And yes, I have no doubt the match will be an absolute banger. But this week, these two really needed a lengthy Charlotte-free spotlight in order to remind you how important this match is. Not about what comes next, not about any future possibilities. This match because they've smartly leaned into all of that. Belair keeps saying, "You're forgetting about me" in all of this, and it's worked so far, but this week it just kind of felt true. Like, it all hinged on this. It all hinged on you really buying the idea that Belair could beat Ripley and go on to face Charlotte at WrestleMania, and we got like a 15-second squash match and a very basic beatdown. It needed to do more, unfortunately. I'm really sorry. So close to a clean sweep, this. So close. I don't want to get too bogged down in this, but like the Survivor Series comparisons have been made so many times. How good NXT were then at keeping their eye on their ball while still going into WWE's main roster backyard and booting theirs clean over the fence. They've done just about enough with this, but it needed to be more this week. Sorry. Anyone else out there who's called Adam really not like when Ciampa starts saying Adam down a camera lens because they forget it's Adam Cole and think it's them? Just me? A massive up for me this segment because Tommaso Ciampa, far from feeling at odds with Adam Cole in the last couple of weeks, has just felt at odds with Tommaso Ciampa. Certainly the version of him we all like. I mean, let's not forget here, this is a guy who got so over as a heel that they didn't even need to do this grand turning babyface moment upon his return because everyone was just so excited to see him, they cheered anyway. The guy's been like, he's been calm and he's been collected. And he's even been a bit comedic in parts during the build to this match, whereas here, he felt chaotic, he felt cerebral, he felt Ciampa. I have been massively underwhelmed by the Cole versus Ciampa build up the last couple of weeks, but it feels like they just pulled it back at the very last second here. I now believe, for the first time in a couple of weeks, that Tommaso Ciampa's entire identity, his psyche, his mentality hinges on him winning that championship. And if he doesn't do it, I don't know what's going to happen. And that excites me. It makes my teeth itch. That is finally the Tommaso Ciampa we want. Not the one who's going to do funny gags, not the one who's going to like run in and save his pals, the one who is solely focused on that belt because to him it is his life. And once again, to quote myself from last week, and now he is literally in the bin. Save this man down. Now, if any of you were watching that last week and wondering precisely why I was getting so wound up, this match should prove why. Like, Kushida is one of the best wrestlers in the world. He's a 6-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. He has an MMA record with 0 losses. They did hype package after hype package after hype package for his introduction. And he should be in the main event of episodes of NXT, not in a flipping bin. This match was brutal. It was technical. It had some of the best counters I have seen on television in a good long while. You could have watched 45 minutes of this very happily instead of the 15 we were offered. It was absolutely brilliant. Up. Obviously, Adam Cole had to take the win heading into TakeOver. That would have been the shock to end all shocks if he'd actually lost this one, but there is no way Kushida is hurt by this defeat. It reminds everybody that he shouldn't be tagging with Breezango or getting rolled up by Cameron Grimes. He should be at the top of the card wrestling the best wrestlers on this brand for something that matters. I would love, they won't do it, but I would love Lee versus Kushida heading into WrestleMania for the North American Championship. Would love that, love it. Then at the end, Tommaso Ciampa comes out, he lays out Adam Cole, and I've said my piece about all of that. That was this week's episode of NXT. Fully showing the flaws with the ups and down system, because it was B+. The whole thing, it was B+. And this makes it look like an all-timer. But of course, that might not be where the scores finish this week, because we still have time for the most important, the most exciting element of NXT ups and downs. Ladies and gentlemen, Bug Watch. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this segment, here it is, the groovy, jazzy up I am willing to award NXT automatically should they give us sight or sound of Rick Bugs a la Eric Bugenhagen. So, was he on this week's show? Sort of. Now, I can't give him one for that. We came back from the Ciampa promo to hear the crowd chanting his name. We didn't see him, we didn't hear from him, but we know now that it's not just me, is it, WWE? Everybody who watches this show wants their bit of Bugs. Please. So there you have it. Those are all the ups and downs for this week's episode of NXT. Let me know what you made of it in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I've, of course, been Adam Clery. You can get me on Twitter at Adam Clery, Clery. And I will see you soon. Goodbye. Well, that rhymed. Might keep that.